What's up, everybody? I'm Clayton. This is my movie review channel, and today we're going to be taking a look at Inception, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Ellen Page, Tom Hardy, Cillian Murphy, and Michael Caine. This is the seventh film by director Christopher Nolan, and it's written and directed by Christopher Nolan. So we're going to break it down, review it. I'm going to give you my thoughts, my opinion, my overall rating of this film. Just as a reminder, this is my personal opinion on this movie. If you feel differently, you're more than welcome to share those thoughts in the comment section. Just be respectful. So let's get into my review of Inception, starting as always with the positives to this film. With the writing, the writing of this film just is really quite mind blowing. No pun intended. I mean, it's the when I think about how someone could make a screenplay out of this concept, it truly amazes me. Just the fact that Nolan was able to construct and form and put this script together. I mean, where do you start? Right? Where do you start with this script? It's so complex. There's just so many layers to it. The fact that Nolan was able to just the fact that he was able to put this screenplay together is just incredible. It's structured well. It's laid out well. The characters here are very strong characters. Each character in this film is serving a purpose. There's no wasted characters. They all have a reason to be there. They're all doing something for the story. They're all advancing the story along. They all have a role to play in this film, and that's good writing by a filmmaker when you have characters that are actually doing something for the story. They're not just there. They're not wasted characters that really have serve no purpose to the film, to the script. It's good writing when the characters in your film are, one, characters that have progression along the way, character development, character arc, but also actually serve a role and a purpose to the story that's being told and to the script itself. So really good writing, character writing by Nolan in this film. The script itself is structured well. There's no plot holes here. It's a very flushed out film that's filtered well, and it moves along, I think, at a good pace. I like the pacing of this film as well. We'll get more into the directing of it in a minute, but sticking to the writing, the story here, just about Inception and planting an idea in someone's head while they're dreaming, planting a dream in someone's head. That's a very interesting and fascinating story to make a film about. What other films prior to Inception were anything like this? There were obviously films about dreams, right? But there was nothing that was of this magnitude, nothing that was like Inception. It's a very creative, very intuitive, very original script and story here by Christopher Nolan, and I really like that he's always trying something new. He's not copying what other directors and filmmakers are always doing. He's being original, being creative, and innovative, and it shows here with Inception. Brilliant story and construct to this story and script. The script itself is near flawless. Good character building, good character arc and development for your characters. Very well written film. As far as the acting goes, I do like the acting across the board here. I think everyone does a really good job. DiCaprio does a good job. I think Ellen Page, although there are moments where I don't think she's quite on the level of the other talent around her overall, I think her performance is still good. I think it's still positive. She's not a character that negatively affects my viewing experience. I just there's a few moments in this film where I feel that she doesn't quite reach the level of DiCaprio or some of the other talent around her. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Again, it's not a negative to this film. It's just an observation of difference in acting talents with some of the cast. But overall, the acting here is very good. I think Tom Hardy does a really good job with his character as the forger, thief, as they I think referred to him once as in this film. This is kind of his coming out party. He hadn't really had any major breakthrough yet. He did do Bronson, which I think may be arguably his best performance to this day. Really good performance, but the film itself didn't really take off. It didn't really get him much notoriety. Inception was really Tom Hardy's first big break. So, and I think he does a really good job in this film. Cillian Murphy, I think, does a good job. I think he shows strong development for his character, good range of acting performance by Cillian Murphy. He does a really good job as well. Marion Cotillard playing Maul does a fine job as well, brings some emotion to that role. The acting is just it's good by everybody. I think Leo as the lead character of this film does a really good job in as Cobb in this film. I think he brings something to that character that character needed for us as an audience to really invest in him. I think that role, that character requires a performance that knows how to bring the audience and invest in that character throughout this film. So I think Leo did that really well. So I like the acting. Michael Caine, even though he plays a small part in this film, I think he's effective. So yeah, really good acting here by everybody. And then in regards to the directing by Christopher Nolan is just top notch. I mean, from the visual effects of this film that are just, I remember the first time I saw this movie, I was truly just, as I was watching it, I was just so enamored with what I was seeing. The visual aesthetics and visual effects of this film are just incredible. The visual effects look so good. The cinematography in this film is just top notch. The look of this film, some of the shots, the camera angles, the drop shots, how Nolan would just drop the camera down on a crane to get just this incredible shot. Like there's a couple scenes where the camera's up top and it drops and you're seeing what's going on as the camera is lowering, and then Nolan brings it back up. It just really interesting camera work in this film. There's a number of shots like that, drop shots that go down and come back up, focus in on the actor, switch to a different angle. Just incredible cinematography in this film. There also the color scheme here. Nolan uses yellow in almost every scene of this film. There's something yellow, either yellow hue or yellow content in the shot itself. So yellow is used all throughout Inception. Yellow is actually the universal color for happiness, which is what Cobb finally reaches at the end of this film when he finally reunites with his kids and finds true happiness and finds the happiness and joy that he'd been looking for this whole film. And the yellow color scheme in this film represents that happiness that Cobb finally gets at the end of this film. So I thought that was just brilliant color usage by Nolan in the cinematography of this film. The yellow hues, the yellow content all throughout this film. In almost every shot, you can find something yellow in it. So I love the cinematography in this film. The editing, right? Come on, I mean, how do you edit this film? The cuts, the all of the different shots that are used here, the transitions are just so smooth throughout. It's just maybe Nolan's best edited film. The editing is just masterfully done in this film. So yeah, the directing here, the sound, so good. The score by Hans Zimmer again just knocks it out of the park. Incredible score. It brings all the score here makes you feel the emotion that you're supposed to feel in this film. Intensity, suspense, action, joy, sadness. It's all there in the score. I love the score in Inception. So yeah, Nolan spent like 10 years developing this film and putting this film together, and you can tell all the hard work truly paid off because this is an incredible film. Um, as far as negatives go, there's really only two negatives I have with Inception, and they're subjective negatives. I get that. I wouldn't say there's any objectively objective flaws with Inception. They're more just my personal subjective viewing experience with Inception. One of my negatives is I feel that this movie is so heavy with exposition and content and just action all throughout the film. There's no real levity to it. There's no break in the film. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes of just nonstop on the go. And while I appreciate that, and while that's incredibly fascinating and very impressive filmmaking, at the same time, it almost exhausts you as a viewer because you have to stay in the film in tuned the entire time. There's no break. Like in The Dark Knight, there's a few moments where you could kind of settle down as a viewer, check your phone real quick. You're not going to miss anything with the story. Now, obviously, if you zone out completely for 5 or 10 minutes, yeah, you're going to miss some things. But if you zone out a couple times or check your phone, there's time that The Dark Knight allows you to have to kind of settle down as a viewer with mentally. And Inception, you don't get that. You have to be invested the entire way through. If you zone out for 10, 20 seconds, you're probably going to miss something. So, and I feel for me, that's a negative because it doesn't have as much rewatchability to it because of that. I love this film, but for me, my attention span can only last so long before I need to be able to just mentally have a break as a viewer where I can just very temporarily zone out just a little bit, do a phone check or whatever. Inception, you need to be mentally invested all the way through. For some people, that's a positive and they love that. And I appreciate the artistry in that, but as a viewer, it can be somewhat exhausting to have to give every bit of mental energy to the film. So that's, you may call that picky or whatever, but this is, again, my personal viewing experience with Inception. That's kind of a negative for me. And then the only other negative I have with Inception is I feel that this movie doesn't really pack much of a story behind the script. There's not. It's about dreams and there's emotion in the script, but there's not really a story behind the script. Morally speaking, philosophically speaking, there's no discussion or story that is being told behind the script, if that makes sense. So I feel like if you're just analyzing Inception as a story, if you're just telling the story of Inception, there's not really much story there. Not really much story that's all that interesting or engaging to talk about or to discuss. There's no statement that is being made here about anything. It's really just a story about dreams. Now, there is emotion in that story that Nolan puts in there. There is emotion in the script. But as far as a story, there's not much being said from a storytelling observation. So those two negatives, they're not major negatives, but they are negatives for me personally with this film. Overall, I give Inception 4.5 out of 5 stars. Great film. Love this film. Can be a bit exhausting as a viewer mentally, and there's not much of a story behind the script for me personally, but everything else is absolutely there. So yeah, love this film. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. I don't think I really spoiled anything. I do think if you haven't seen it, the end might be a little confusing, but if you pay attention closely to the film, I don't think it will be confusing at all. I think the answer to the question at the end is actually pretty clear. Nolan has given a definitive answer to it as well. It's pretty clear if you're paying close attention to the scenes. I don't think it will be that confusing. So yeah, that's it, guys. That's my thoughts on Inception. What do you think? How do you feel about Inception? What would you rate this film? Do my negatives, are those negatives for you as well? Are there negatives that I didn't mention that would be negatives for you? Let me know in the comment section. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, until next time, rock on.